SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar.
Modern opera, but we also were able to showcase what we do on a daily basis as performers, to show all facets of what we do. So Jared was one of the composers featured on the program. I was also one of the composers featured on the program, which was a huge honor for me. And then we also had some more traditional repertoire. Kate did North Wind, and we had a drum circle at the end of the concert. Just lots of really exciting things. We had people that couldn't be there in person that performed via video.
So this is a project that's already happened, right? You guys have already performed it. And it's going to be rebroadcast again. Where can people see it right now if they can see it?
Absolutely. So it will be available. It was recorded by Montana PBS, but it will be available on the Intermountain Opera Bozeman website from June 16th through June 30th. And that's a free stream. Anyone can watch it anytime in that time frame, but it's about 2 weeks that anyone can watch it. And we're hoping as many Native citizens and affiliated people will want to join in and see something that they might not see on any other stage, because this was very special that we were all together at one place.
Let's talk a little bit too, and anybody can chime in whenever you guys want, about the Intermountain Opera Organization and how they work with natives, etc. You know, because I did a little research on everything before we came in to do the meeting, and I saw their organization. It looks interesting. What was your experience working with them?
Well, it seems to me like this is the first project that they've focused on Native performers, and so Michael Sakir was just he was just on it. He just had a real mission to do this right, which he did. I mean, he really knocked it out of the ballpark. And, you know, Kirsten was mentioning earlier something that was actually really critical to us, and that is our repertoire and our singing was presented directly next to the normal canon of classical repertoire that's in opera. So that was really neat. This was not like a special concert in like a, you know what I mean? Like, okay, it's going to be just Indians, this kind of a thing. It was mixed in with standard repertoire. So it was a normal concert in that sense that featured North American Indian performers. And so I liken it very much to like in the past. This has happened frequently with other folks in different nationalities. So you would have a concert of Russian vocalists, opera singers in St. Petersburg, featuring their own native singers singing Mozart and Tchaikovsky. You know, I mean, there would be a mix, that kind of thing. And what they were doing is they were literally, purposefully putting Russian repertoire next to standard European repertoire that was already sung. And the same thing in ballet. When Russians really kind of snagged ballet from France, they did the same thing where they were featuring their own dancers. They were really putting themselves into the same arena of world players in those things. And so Michael gave us the same opportunity as American Indian performers to just step right into that same world stage that people have been doing historically. And you know, it's almost like the Olympics. It's like everybody's like going for first place, and so now we're part of that race, which is really, really great.
So for each of you, there are performances that you crafted yourself, and so for each of you, which are your favorite things that you did in this performance? And we can start off with Dr. Kunkel, and we'll go down the line.
That was most exciting for me specifically is that I was able to bring back two pieces from my dissertation recital. One of them in particular is one that I wrote, and it's based on the poetry of my ancestor, Alexander Posey. Now, it's in Pidgin English. It's called Hot Gun on the Death of Yudeka Harjo. And for Mvskokes out there, you may know of him specifically from his poetry, but also the Fuss Fixico letters, and also his affiliation with trying to make sure that citizens had land during the Dawes Commission. So to me, it was very important that that particular piece was set. So at the time, about 15 years ago, give or take, I decided to write it myself when I didn't get a lot of interest from other composers. So it was written specifically for me, a pianist, and my brother who played double bass, slap bass. And I never really thought I'd get a chance to bring it back into a concert setting. So it was very exciting for me that Mvskoke had asked me to bring this into the concert and make it part of this special event. Equally exciting for me was that Jared played on that piece with me, along with a wonderful cellist who took on the double bass, Julia Silvar, but also that I also got to perform one of Jared's pieces on the same concert. So we were playing and performing each other's works. So that for me specifically was what made it so special. And I'm really excited to bring both of those works to new audiences.
Let's move down the line and talk to Mr. Tate about your contribution to the program and what you think your favorite part of it was and kind of the effort that went into that.
Well, my contribution started before we put it together. I had recommended some of the vocalists, and then also we played a couple of my own compositions. Kirsten played a piece of mine called Hojo, which was dedicated to a Navajo doctor in Tuba City, and Grant Youngblood played a piece, sang a piece in the Ponca language. Sorry, I'm not using my words well. That was entitled Standing Bear. And so those were the two pieces of repertoire that I was contributing. I got to play the piano with him, which was really great. And so anyway, I honestly, I don't think there was a favorite part of my concert. I thought the whole thing was absolutely incredible. I loved it because there were just so many aspects to it. And as an audience, I wanted to be in the audience, really. You know, I was really fascinated with the concert in and of itself. So every aspect of it was done really, really well. And I mean, Michael did a great job of putting that together and conceptualizing it. We all contributed, you know, just in very natural ways. It came together very naturally, actually. So I just thought the whole concert was really stunning. It's the kind of concert that I would like to go to no matter what the topic was. The way it was treated and the diversity that it had in it was really great.
When this is live streamed, will it be the first time you guys have seen the whole thing put together on the audio visual side, you know, on the opposite from the performing, or will you guys have already seen it?
This will be the first time.
So, so how excited are you guys? Do you get any say on the editing side or on the production side of that? Are you just going to have to tune in and see what happens?
I think it's mostly tune in and see what happens, but we have a lot of faith in the people behind it. They have very high quality expectations and standards for themselves. So I think they'll do everything they can to make sure it's well represented.
Awesome. I haven't received a lot of stuff or a lot of comment from Ms. Morton. Ms. Morton, what was your experience in this project? You know, like how I know you're probably the youngest of all everybody here in this Zoom. So what was it like to work with these, you know, established artists and get to mine their knowledge?
You used a very good choice of words there because I definitely mined a lot of knowledge. I kept telling Jared and Shane and Kirsten and Michael and Grant that the whole week. I was like, I'm learning so much because I am young. And going into this performance, that was something that I was aware of. And something not necessarily that I was self-conscious of or anything, but just that I understood that these people are in a position of where they have a lot more knowledge than me. And I am not in that phase where I know everything. I know I don't know everything. And so I would say that probably my favorite thing about this whole experience was the people that I got to work with and being able to learn so much from everyone. I mean, I asked so many questions, just ask them. I was constantly asking questions, and it was just a really incredible opportunity for me.
Great. So how did you get brought in specifically? Like, was it through your connections with Mr. Tate, or like how did that process happen for you?
I was recommended by Barbara McAllister and Jared to Michael, and that's how I got involved with it because I worked with Barbara McAllister for 4 years in high school, and I had actually never met Jared Tate in person. It's funny because we both live in Oklahoma City, but then we had to go all the way to Montana to meet each other. And so that was really fun. But yes, Jared and Barbara got me involved with this.
Great. Is there any maybe a wrinkle to the production or something that happened behind the scenes that the audience won't see through the live stream that's connected you guys in any way that you could think of, like maybe an inside story that you guys thought were interesting on the Native American side?
Oh.
Shopping.
I was going to say ice cream.
Ice cream.
What is the ice cream story?
We ate a lot of ice cream.
We ate a lot of ice cream. Every night, maybe sometimes twice a day, there's a lot of good ice cream shops in Bozeman, Montana, I'll tell you. And so we decided to take advantage of that. And so every day we made sure we had ice cream.
So, Dr. Go ahead.
Our big inside jokes are Albertsons ice cream and shopping. So.
I lived with Kate and Jared in a house, and the three of us, I can't tell you how many times I said, you guys are having ice cream again? Don't you want real food? And Kate never wanted real food, and we had to keep reminding her that we needed to eat real food because she just wanted ice cream. And I said to both of them, I wish I had your metabolisms because I can't do that.
So that sounds like probably to me the most interesting part of everything we've talked about is that you three lived in a house together. Were you practicing and everything in there? That must have been an amazing, like, just to be the neighbor of that house. What was that experience like? What were some other? Is that something that you guys did for this production?
Yes, it was a great experience getting to live in the house with Kirsten and Jared. It was a different experience for sure because I had never had a job where I had to live in the same house with other performers before. But I would say that I enjoyed getting to spend so much time with them and listening to everyone practice. I remember I would listen to Kirsten vocalize and practice, and I'd be sitting in my room upstairs. I'd just be like, whoa, I get to work with this woman. Then I would hear Jared practicing, and I would be like, oh my gosh, this man is very talented. And so it was just a very surreal experience for me.
We had this wonderful thing that we could do because of it, where one day I knew Jared and I needed a little more time on our piece beyond what had been allotted to us for rehearsal. And I heard him practicing, and I just said, do you want to just work on our piece? And he said, yeah, that'd be great. So we were able to do that because we were both in the same place, and there happened to be a piano there, and we were able to practice in the same space. That probably couldn't have happened otherwise, but we also just had a lot of fun, a lot of coffee. I remember at one point Jared was practicing piano, and Kate and I were just singing musical theater duets in the kitchen because that's what we both love to do in our free time. So, it was just a lot of camaraderie, and because of all this friendship that naturally grew, I think we all worked so much better together than we might have otherwise.
Oh, absolutely. So,
opera camp.
I remember whenever I first met Shane, whenever we had our dress rehearsal, and Shane walked in, and I said, oh, this guy's incredible. I can already tell just from him walking in.
Well, then we spent our time with Shane in the green room, and so that, of course, back in any green room, that's where people are really, just speaking very naturally with each other, and so we were able to spend. Yeah, I know, right? What's said in the green room stays in the green. No, what we're really talking about is really a human story, and this happens everywhere with anybody in any profession or any specialty that they have. Is that when we're all able to spend time with each other and talk about families. We talked a lot about family, actually. It's a whole bunch. Like, how many kids do you have? Shane's got, 29?
No.
I think
At last count.
I'm giving out. No, but I mean, just a really simple thing. But that's also what I really love and enjoy whenever I'm working with an audience. I love to be able to start talking about things that are like really common to all of us in life. So it was really, honestly, it was a very human story. And we came coming to sing and play music. I mean, so that's a pretty darn good premise.
Absolutely. It looks like we're having some connection difficulties there with Mr. Tate. Dr. Doyle, while I've got you in, So you're from that area, right? The Bozeman area? Is that correct? So what's the deal with
I grew up on the Little Bighorn River.
Okay. And you're also involved in a lot of, I was looking you up on Google, like you're involved in a lot of, you've spoke about Deb Holland and some of the things that are not necessarily music related, but culturally related that are important for Native American tribes. What do you think the importance of productions like this are? Like how do they affect the overall perception of Native Americans to you?
Well, I think they're extremely important. That's been one of the driving forces behind my career is to, identify and help to nurture and celebrate Native talent. That's just something that I love to do. I love working with Native people, most especially in Montana, but all throughout the nation. And, events like this really, I think, kind of showcase what was mentioned earlier. No one has a more American experience than an American Indian. We are who we are through our ancestral ties, but we're also a part of this American culture that is so diverse. It encapsulates, so many different aspects of the world. And I think that as American Indians, we grow up, our parents, the values that and the sensibilities that most of us have in our families are, hey, the world is your oyster. Whatever you see out there that you want to do or whatever captures your passion, do it, And that's kind of the community that I came from. Those were the values and those were, I think, the traditions that I inherited. And I can see that in these people that I met here in Bozeman when they came for the opera, and I'm just so excited to invite them back next year because we're having the 150th anniversary of the establishment of Yellowstone Park, which is, of course, the world's first national park. And all of the area that is on known as the Yellowstone National Park is on the homeland of many diverse Native people that are still here in the region. And we want to make a point of reintroducing ourselves as a permanent presence there for cultural resources and other reasons. And we want to use next year as the launching of that. And we want to do it. We want to use art. We want to use another, hopefully, an operatic collaboration and other performance-based arts to really kind of, like I said, celebrate the American Indian experience and to let people know we're still here. We have a lot to say. We have a lot to offer, and we have there's a lot of need for us right now to lead the way in this country. And I think that we want to step up and do that.
Well, I got everybody here. Can everybody hear me? Because it looks like we're having connection problems that are going to start up. But I just wanted to tell you guys, everybody, thanks so much for jumping into this Zoom meeting and doing this interview. Me personally, I love to see Native Americans of any tribe that are out there and impacting the world, especially in areas where the average public would think that it's a Western civilization or European standpoint type of artwork. So it's awesome. I'm going to look forward to tuning into that stream. Is there any aspect of this production or your experience, and this is just a broad question for everybody, that you'd like to mention before we wrap up? Like, is there anything that, or maybe shout outs that you'd like to give to individuals, et cetera, that we haven't mentioned yet to say, hey, X, Y, or Z, or these are like basically give them the stamp of approval. And this is open to everybody.
Well, let me just say, could I?
Yeah, you go.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I just want to say I was overwhelmed by the talent, not just the performance abilities of these people, but their ability to write music, the compositions that they created. were just so astonishingly brilliant that I was really overwhelmed. I'm still processing all of it.
I just wanted to mention too that we had 2 performers that were not there in person, and they sent in video performances, and that is Barbara McAllister and Holden Monogame. And I just wanted to mention them because their performances were incredible, and I can't wait to see it on the stream.
If I may, Holden is Canadian, and I believe he's Cree. Is that correct? Barbara is Cherokee, and Barbara's a legend. She is really, like a grandparent in opera singing. Barbara has a worldwide career. She sang with the Met for a number of years. She lived in New York City for a very, very long time and decided to move back home into Cherokee territory and became an employee of the tribe, where she teaches classical voice to Cherokee citizens. And Caitlin is one of her students, and she is leaving a wonderful legacy. And so Barbara is a really, really critical part of this. And the good thing is that, she's a little older now, and so she doesn't like to travel, and she didn't have to, which was just terrific. She made a beautiful video, and the impact was just as, the audience was laughing. It was really, you could feel it. It was great. And so it was a really great testimony to what we can do. And again, as Native folks, since we're so disparate, we're so removed from each other. Well, this is a really good example of how we can connect even further and take advantage of these modern day technologies that we've got. So anyway, but Barbara was a great example of that. We were able to bring in an elder in our community and have her participate in a way that was just as impactful as our live performances. But she's really important.
Yeah, I think that everything everybody said is 100% accurate and true. These people, I think we've all found our own small little family we didn't expect to find. I now affectionately call Kate my opera niece, which she said she accepts. So, and that's just kind of special. Jared and I talk about our children all the time, just we've had a bond that I don't think has happened for me nearly as much as I would like in the opera field. I don't know how much of that is directly because we're all Native. I do know it is because we're all good people. And for me, that's been very special. Michael Saker did a great job trying to be as supportive as possible. I think he deserves special recognition. I think this is something he wants to do more of and be more out there and present to let people know that there are American Indians and Canadian First Nations people that want to be performing, that are opera singers, that are involved in opera or are in classical music, that want to bring visibility and representation to the field of opera as a whole. And we have a few big names in the opera field, but they're not common knowledge. They're not common names that the general opera public knows, like Barbara McAllister. She's a legend for Native American opera singers, but there's very few of us in the opera world who know who she is, and that's a travesty. That's something that needs to be remedied. As far as major names in the arts, you've got people like Maria Tallchief, and you've got Joy Harjo. But as far as opera singers, we need more. We need to have that representation available. And I think this is a start in that direction. This is the beginning. We all want to see it go much further. And we are so grateful to people like you, Jared, who are willing to take the time to hear what we have to say, promote what we've done, and just get our names out there and encourage people, because opera can be scary. But it's not scary. The opera is for everyone. We are trying to make it approachable and important and something that is accessible to all. And the way to do that is to just make sure people know that our love of opera is important and present, and it's not just old dead white men. It is all of us. By creating this new music, we are inherently making opera also Native. And by singing this music, it is becoming Native, because that is who we are. And it's part of what we do. So I think that that's the most important takeaway for me. Yes, the camaraderie is amazing. And yes, this bond we've had made this important. But we need people to see the representation that's available and know that opera is for everyone. Literally everyone. we can find a way to make it work for you. And we hope that you'll join us and be part of that with us.
We'd like to thank Jared Moore for sharing that discussion on his Mvskoke Vision work. And we'll have to give classical music and opera a second thought. We'll be back with more and Joy Harjo right after this.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be Native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Joy Harjo was in town just the other day speaking at the Day of Prayer rally and shared some of the poetry that she favors. And I got to walk in the rain with her. As the event wound down, the rain did not, and we both got pretty wet. But in speaking with her, it reminded me of all the accomplishments she's had. And this was her first naming, shall we say, as the U.S. Poet Laureate. So we thought we'd share that with you, and I believe she's going to join us next week. This is kind of an overwhelming new, and you've got an incredible list of accomplishments here, but this, where does this rank among the things you've done there?
Well, it just depends on what you're looking at, because yes, this is as far as in the poetry world, in the world, in the creative world in which I've been working for many years. This definitely tops. This definitely tops it all.
Well,
and,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and then there's and then my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I even have great-grandchildren. That also tops it all too.
I can imagine now. I guess let's just start with what were your feelings when you found out this honor was going to be bestowed on?
Well, it was a surprise for one, and I got a call from Rob at the Library of Congress, and I know him because he organizes the National Book Fair, etc. And he said, "I need. Can you call about such and such a time? I just have a really quick question." And so I thought, okay, And then I called, and they said, "We have you on speakerphone, and this is Carla Hayden, the Librarian of Congress." And she says, would you be our 23rd U.S. Poet Laureate? And I'm stunned. I mean, I'm still stunned. It's still, I was told May 2nd, and I'm still kind of feeling this out, and I really had now that I'm in the middle of the first part of it, I had no idea, really, the scope of it, but it gives a great opportunity to represent for Mvskoke Creek Nation. It opens the door for our young people to say, wait, we can do this. We're, this is us too. And, it does it for Indian country and for, young poets and writers all over, young poets who are coming up, or young people who want to be poets and think, I would hope that it gives them some kind of this appointment will help them, will inspire them to just keep moving.
Was it difficult for you to, I guess, self-embargo this announcement? You said they called you on May the 2nd, so that's May and a good chunk of June there. So was it kind of hard?
It was in some ways, and in some ways not. I got to hold off on it and just kind of be with the idea for a little while. And but it was a relief the announcement was a relief. But I'm in the midst of, this. I guess what's really struck me is by how many people are really happy about it, and these are usually people they've seen me. People have seen me. I've grown up in the public. Basically, I started writing when I was in my 20s with 2 young children at home. I was pretty much a single mother, and came up through. I grew up here in Tulsa, and yet went away to Indian boarding school. It was an art school, and came back and had my son in Tahlequah, W.W. Hastings. We lived on nothing. Went back and had a daughter and went to school with the tribe helped me with money for school, and I'm always appreciative of that. And it's been a long road, and a lot of it's been a challenge because when you're coming up as a young poet, you get a lot of doors slammed in your face. You get turned down. I mean, I got turned down for a grant the other day. It still happens. You just can't let it. You just have to keep moving. But I guess what I'm trying to say that is along the way I've met so many people, and so many people have helped out. So many people have, driven me to the airport, picked me up, made sure I was okay. I've had students, friends. It's quite a broad circle, a wide circle, and I've probably been to almost every tribal nation in the country at some point or the other in my almost, over 40 years of doing this. So I like to think it's all of us at this award. It has to do with this awarding or honor. I guess I should say an honor. This honoring is really about, it takes in all of us.
You've opened quite a door there, and you've mentioned the tribe and its support, and meeting Native people from across the nation, and traveled and gained support internationally too. Now, all in all, as you stop and look at it, first of all, what do you think about this kind of heavy responsibility in representing pretty much all of Native America?
Well, it is a heavy responsibility, and as I've always said, because through the years, I've been in positions where I'm expected to represent everybody, and it's like, ultimately, you can't represent everybody. You can do the best you can to make sure that everyone has a voice.
And for Mvskoke Creek people, culture and history in your life, what kind of part did that play in, you think, in achieving this pinnacle?
Okay, can you ask me again?
Yeah, you're a Creek woman, and
Yes.
Knowing Creek culture and people, and I presume some language. What kind of part did that play? Was it really important? Did it give you inspiration or direction, do you think?
Well, it's part of who I am, and I don't really I'm not self-conscious about it. It's just part of who I am, and I find Mvskokeness weaving throughout everything I do, and through all the poems, imagery, and meaning, and so on. And it's always, it's always just me, and I'm part of the people, and I've been always inspired by our people and the stories and the songs and who we are and our history and how we keep moving, and that's always been a part of me.
And as you move into this incredible position, what does it, I guess, do to the world of poetry and the structure in place? I mean, you feel like you're kind of shaking some foundations by adding this Native American flavor, so to speak?
Well, the point has always been that we are the original American poets, so to speak. There's an incredible diversity of indigenous nations and indigenous nations poetry, and we form the foundation. And then layered on top and through are all of these immigrant nations, and all of that makes what you would call an American poetry. But we are essential to anything called American, whether it's American history, economics, anything. It starts with indigenous peoples and our contributions.
What is the job of a poet laureate? Have you had a chance to kind of examine that job, so to speak, and what will be asked of you?
Yeah, I guess I needed the job description first before saying yes. It's basically an honorary position, and I have an office there in D.C. But I'm living in Tulsa. I'll stay here, but go there once in a while. And but there are a lot of different. September 19th there'll be a big opening reading, and I'm excited that there's a group from Haskell already coming up, and a lot of other people. And you don't have to pay. There's no ticket cost. Anybody can come. So that's the first thing I do. And then if I do a second term, which is most likely, then I'll develop a project, and I'm working on that now. That will a national project, which of course in that project I want to highlight indigenous nations poets, but find a way for all of us to talk. Poetry teaches you how to listen, so it can be a way for us to talk across national, international, cultural dividing lines.
Well, when you speak of those lines and distinctions, I noticed over the past week or so that many of those distinctions have fallen by the side. I think this story about you and this poet laureate position has made more headlines, I think, than darn near any other Native story, except going back to Standing Rock and Dapple. I've seen it in AP. Of course, the networks have been using it, and I'm presuming NPR and others are standing in line, waiting to talk with you. So you've made quite an impression there. So what's, I guess, the message that you want to get across and take advantage of this spotlight?
Well, I need to be quiet for a while and just look and kind of survey. But what's important is this country, this earth, this place that is our home, this place that is us, because we're not separate from this earth. And we're in need of healing. We're all in need of healing. There's been, certainly from history, but from history, from, just we're in need of. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I love our young people. I watch them. I've got grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and what I was told by those people who know things is that they're all our children. And I look at this world that we're in right now. It's so divisive. It's so much hate-mongering, and it hurts. It's hurting. It's hurting the children, and it's hurting the young. It's hurting us. And so, if I would like to see how I could be useful with this platform and with poetry, because with poetry and how poetry can be useful in moving us along towards compassion and understanding.
This direction that you've taken all your life, was it really something that you set out to do when you began this creative trick? Say, oh boy, I want to be a poet and really be famous. But all the stories of poets that I've ever seen have been, those kinds of things of hardship and acceptance. You're not going to get rich being a poet, most likely. And so, was that ever part of your thinking there? It's like, I guess going back to the initial question, I want to be a poet.
If I wanted to be famous, I certainly wouldn't be a poet. Or if I went into poetry, I don't even feel like I chose to go into poetry. I've always felt those people, our ancestors, I've always felt them close to me ever since I was a very small child. and they've always protected me, and they do, all of us. Nothing special. We all have them with us. And, even when I would go the wrong way, and they would always knew when I was making the wrong direction, and I went through a lot of hardship and a lot of it my own doing. It was poetry that helped me out. And at one point, I was poised to become an artist like my Aunt Lois Harjo and my grandmother Naomi Harjo. And I liked painting and I liked doing art, and I didn't have to talk to people because I was very, very shy. But there was something, I remember I was going through a lot of hardship. I was a young mother. I was going through domestic violence. I was suicidal. And I don't know how I would keep going. And they basically handed me a pen and said, kept me from, said, we will show you the way, but you have to listen. So for me, poetry is a way to sit and be quiet and listen. And so then I listen, but poetry is like any other art. You don't just write something down and there it is. You work on it. There's a process, there's challenge. Sometimes a poem might take a year to write. Other poems might take 6 months, some 3 months. But it's been quite a teacher for me. But no, I didn't set out to be a poet. I wanted to be an artist. And then the poetry came on me, and it's like, this doesn't make sense. I didn't plan to be a poet, and yet that's, at some point, it was given to me to do, and I just had to do it. I wanted to make a living because I have children, and I often taught to make a living. And, the book sales, even if your name's out there, you can't live on book sales or CD sales. But you just do it because it was given to you to do. And I have, I've been given poems that I had no idea, I just knew that they came from that place where the people loved us. And so I feel like I've just been taking care of them. I call myself the nails and hammer person, and I'm given sometimes this startling and sometimes beautiful language, and I try to lay it out. It's, sort of like making a ribbon skirt. I've been making some of those lately. It's like you're given this beautiful materials and these words, and then I just construct them in a way that might go on and help some other young person like I was, who looked at the mess we're in and thought, I don't know if I can make it through.
Let me ask you about that inspiration. I read a lot of your work now, and your autobiographical piece, and listened to that rowdy saxophone of yours. You have so many directions. What is it that inspires you to create?
A lot of it has to do with, I think, beauty and healing, the need to help and to just inspire. I mean, I think we all get inspired by sunrise, by certain smells. I love the sound of all those insects. I love being up, watching the sky, the stars and the sky move when we're up dancing all night, and being with everyone, and the sound of, there's just so much that inspires us. And we all get inspired, but I think it would be helpful if everyone, you write little notes down so you remember. It's kind of what poems can be too. It's like, sometimes it's like a kind of spiritual note-taking of things that strike you, and so that you want to remember them, or sometimes it's like that. Sometimes not. Sometimes you see something else that is hard to write about, but somehow by doing it, you help others.
I was going to ask you about the things that are, as you said, hard to write about. There, much of your work deals with some painful and very introspective kinds of things. So by expressing them creatively, is that sort of a release? Is it a way, a therapy, if you will?
It can be. It's not pure therapy because I'm making art. There's a lot of stuff I write that nobody ever sees. It's just that, that stuff just for getting stuff out. I think it's helpful, because then you can stop. You can get angry, you can get upset, but then you can stop. Once you get it out, then you can stop and say, okay, let's just take a breath here, and now I've dealt with that energy, and let's see where we can go. Is there a way to go that can be constructive, that won't hurt anybody? I don't want to cause any pain, yet sometimes it's painful to see the truth.
I think a lot of people who are familiar with your work would quickly agree with you and find a way that to share that release, perhaps. Now let's look at the sunny side of that question. Is it fun? I mean, are there times when you just get a real kick out of putting something down or putting it together? Just kind of make you smile and laugh and enjoy what you do.
Of course, even in the midst of all that, even when I'm writing about challenge, there's so much excitement in using language. But I think one of the funnest things I ever did was a song called the "Had It Up to Here" round dance song. I decided to do this kind of round dance song of a couple arguing at a dance, and so I brought Charlie Hill. I lived in LA for a little while, and there's a period I was running into him everywhere. We'd run into each other in the street, and we became really good friends. And so I got this idea for a song, and I scripted some of it, and I brought him into the studio, and we started recording. And then, he, of course, he's a comedian. He's very funny, and he started ad-libbing, and then I ad-libbed with him, and we had such a good time. And it made a really fun song. And now I'm glad I have that, because he's not with us anymore.
Right, and even I understand when he was in the hospital, he was still cracking jokes and breaking people up. So,
yeah.
Now, the position of poet laureate, would I presume would have to deal with requests from whoever. The events that happen in the nation, important personal kinds of things that happen to Americans. Are you looking at having to produce, so to speak, to meet these kind of requests?
There's been requests all kinds of requests pouring in, and then I've heard from people that I've known through the years, and people I don't remember knowing through the years, but it's been quite an outpouring. There's some events from the Poet Laureate office, and then there's other events. I'll be doing what I've always done too at the same time, which is I have my usual events of going to schools, going to music festivals or poetry festivals, and presenting poetry and music, or one or the other, and I've been doing that for years, and I'll continue doing that. And then I have this new book, An American Sunrise, coming out, and I just had a book out, a play called Wings of Night Sky, Wings of Morning Light, and I'm working on a musical project. And so I'm going to do what I've always done, but added will be this responsibility, and also I'll be thinking about a project that will benefit us and help move us forward, and especially I especially think of those young people, those teens out there who are really struggling to find meaning.
What kind of reaction have you gotten from the American public so far? I know it's only been a short time since the announcement's been out, but you mentioned you've gotten a lot of requests. I think that's wonderful. But, are they saying, hey, we finally got an Indian in there, or it's about time another minority was served, this kind of thing? Or are people really genuinely curious about who you are and what you'll be doing?
I think it's a mix, but there's a lot of, I've been out here for a long time, and so I've been really overwhelmed by a lot of people who said they've been crying because a lot of people have known, I guess, particularly the struggle of Native poets to even get a place at the table. And for the most part, we kind of go along and we do what we do. And I think with Standing Rock really was major in opening up the story, because here in the middle of the country, there was, the earth crisis came to a head right in the middle of country and right in the middle of Indian country, of course, and so that brought Native country into focus. And so this, I think, kind of builds on it. And people are really, people are excited, and I am too. I mean, I'm excited too, because I feel that this is a great opportunity, not just for me, but for all of us to say, well, here we are, and we're part of, we're here. That Illuminative, and I don't know if you've talked to Crystal Echohawk and Illuminative people, but they're doing great work of, providing data that shows that, well, a lot of Americans think that natives they think that we're dead, for one thing, or they think that we're not really human beings.
Right, I found that they know more about our dead ancestors than they do the tribe living down the road.
Yeah. I had an assistant, a wonderful young assistant, when I taught at UTK, and he realized he lived next door to a tribe in Michigan, and nobody knew each other.
That's so true all over the country.
It is, and I would like to open that up,
Well, you have an interesting and wonderful opportunity there. What is, I guess, the message then that you might want to give the rest of the United States?
Message? Oh my gosh. Well, I think poetry is about, it's the art. Poetry is really the art of listening. And we all need to, and you can't listen if you're talking or yelling at someone else or calling somebody racist insults, or you can't listen. If you got earbuds in all the time, or you're constantly, enthralled with your phone, or we need to stop and listen.
Right, I've heard you use that phrase when I've had the opportunity to talk with you. What is it that maybe you want to hear from Native America, if there is a message coming to you, so to speak? What I love, we're so diverse. Even in our families, we're diverse. There's so many stories that, our stories are so complicated and incredible and hilarious and disturbing and full of details that go way beyond, the stereotypes are just these flat images that aren't full of life. And we have stories of life that connect us. I think we need to hear that. Okay, we are going to have to wrap this up. We appreciated her taking her time, and she's promised to be back with us again to chat with me and give us an update. Till then, thank you so much for being with us here on Mvskoke Radio. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Madam.